English 108. I'm a day late. I know that many of you set your watch to these mini lectures, so I apologize for disrupting that weekly routine. But just a very, very quick video to give you a sense of where we're at, where we're headed, and some of the things I really want you to consider as we close out the semester. So yes, it's hard to believe, but we're in week 12 here. We have about a month left of the semester. So we're about halfway through our second to last assignment, which is the safety fact sheet. And just to really hammer home some of the key points of this assignment, again, in terms of the actual text or the content or the word count or the length of this assignment, it is the smallest assignment we'll probably do all semester. Second, maybe only to the resume. But in some ways, it's the most sophisticated assignment in that it's asking you to do a number of things really well. So keep in mind these things as you're working this week, and I can't stress this enough. Remember that this is audience-centered. I want you to imagine your actual coworkers while you're writing this. Okay, and I said this last video, and I think it bears repeating. When we're asked to write these types of documents, these briefs, these updates, it's really easy for us to fall into what I call the copy and paste model of writing, where we're just wholesale moving content from one spot to another spot. But what happens is there's a lot lost in translation there, and so it's really important to translate and to sort of retrofit that information to meet the needs of your particular audience. And so it's fundamental that you have a very clear understanding of who your audience is, what they already know about the topic, what they need to know about the topic, and most importantly, what they can do to prevent the issue. And so I want you to use that data or that intel or that insight to really make careful decisions relative to the level of language that you use. So this document cannot have any outsider language or jargon in it. You've really got to be careful about how you discuss these things, and it's really easy, especially when we fall victim to the copy and paste model, to go off the deep end with medical terminology that will fly over the reader's head. It's really important to make decisions about what the reader actually needs to know. That is, what is essential and what is non-essential. And what that's going to help us do is make sure that the document's not overwhelming, that it is concise, that it's to the point, and that it's focused. A lot of times we as readers avoid reading things, ignore things, fail to pay attention to things because they're not focused. And so it's really important for us in this assignment to maintain a tight focus and to really focus on the nature of the issue, the ways that the reader is going to interact with this issue in the workplace, and most importantly, what the reader can do to prevent these issues. So it's a really practical document. And I can tell you that if you are paying close attention to your language and you're calibrating the language to meet the needs and the knowledge of the reader, if you're paying really close attention to the amount of content that you're presenting and keeping that content really focused, you're going to be in a really good spot. So, and of course, you need to have high quality information. You need to have information that's relevant and useful to your particular readers. That's what we're going to focus on. So I realize, and then you'll see that this week there's not a lot of work due because I'm going to honor the fact that this assignment takes a little bit of time. In gathering and sorting through and translating and editing the information, but then also the process of actually putting it onto the page so that a reader can read it, understand it, and ultimately use it to have healthier and safer behaviors in the workplace. So to zoom out just a little bit from that particular assignment and just give you a sense of where we've been and where we're headed. So at this point now I have your final drafts of your instructions assignment. I will be reading those closely, providing additional feedback, and ultimately grading those. So you're going to want to keep your eyes open for that. My hope is to have that done by the end of the week. And of course, and this stands for any assignment we've done so far, if you're not happy with your grade or my assessment of that, you can either talk to me or you can simply just make revisions and resubmit that for a higher grade. So, I've said it a million times, but the ball's in your court as far as the grade goes. So if you're not happy with your standing in the class, if you have questions or concerns about that, I want to be as transparent as possible. Ultimately, I want you to be in the driver's seat relative to your grade. So we'll be putting that to bed. You'll be turning in a draft of your fact sheet at the end of this week. I'll be taking a close look at that, giving you some feedback and a provisional grade. If you're happy with the grade, then you can stand on that grade. If you're not, you can obviously revise and resubmit for a higher grade. And then we'll actually be entering the final chapter of the semester, which is really a cumulative assignment in that it's going to put all of the skills that we've worked on so far to work. And I just want to forecast this to you just so you can begin thinking about it. Ultimately, you're going to be writing a recommendation report. And so I'm going to give you a series of scenarios that try to pull from the various fields that are represented in the class. And so you're going to have to make a recommendation that solves a problem based on your research of the topic. And so let me give you an example of what this could sound like. In one scenario, you are the IT director for a local school district, RSU 207. Your school district has recently won a grant to provide tablet computers for 7th and 8th grade students, and the superintendent is asking you to find 3 viable options, research them, and make a final recommendation as to which one you think is the best fit for 7th and 8th graders, taking into account the criteria and the elements that matter to that particular user. So obviously price, durability, accessibility, performance, those types of things would be things that you would need to research and ultimately use to make your decision. And you're going to present this in a formal report. And so this will be our opportunity to learn a little bit about the mechanics of, the organization of, and the special considerations when you're writing a formal report for review by supervisors, external bodies, etc. And so we'll be working on that. And so next week I'll formally be assigning that. And then basically we'll be using the balance of the semester to work on those. So that's really what we're up to. And so, not a lot of breaking news here this week. I hope you had you found it useful to look at a couple of sample fact sheets written by students. Again, I can't stress enough that as part of your writing process, when you're tasked to write in a new format or in a new genre, it's really important for you to go out and look at examples to find an excellent example in particular, to study that, to think about what that piece of writing does, how it's put together, what its parts and pieces are, what the language sounds like, what the design looks like, and to really study it and sort of reverse engineer it and try to understand what makes it a good example. And what that will help you do is kind of get your bearings and get you pointed in the right direction so that you can then hopefully replicate that. Now, that doesn't mean that I want you to take what other folks have done and sort of use it wholesale and use it as a template and just plug in your content, because as we know in our discussion of resumes, that doesn't work typically, because you're taking a generic structure and you're trying to really apply it to a very unique situation, a rhetorical or communicative situation that has a unique audience, unique purpose, and unique situation. So it's just really, it's a good exercise to go out and see what's out there to sort of understand what that can look like. For instance, if you're a small business owner, let's say that you start a small business, you may want to, create a brochure for your business that you could, have available around town or in your office or whatever. Or maybe you're offering a new service and you want to explain the service in a brochure. I would hope that based on what we've learned in this class about what an effective writing process looks like, one of the things that you would be compelled to do and move to do would be to go out and look at what a good brochure looks like. So the way that it blends words and images, the way that it's divided, the way that it uses the space of the page, the types of language, the amount of text that it includes. And so that you could get a really good understanding of what an excellent version of that type of writing looks like. So that was really what I was after and have been after this semester when I give you examples to take a look at. Is one, obviously, to find the things that work well, maybe two, to question some of the decisions that the writers made, and to maybe think of solutions to make a piece of writing even better. So again, I'm trying to create a framework or a habit of mind where you are capable of and comfortable looking at a piece of writing and reimagining what it could look like, what it should look like, what it might look like, etc. So we're really just trying to become more thoughtful and intentional in terms of how we actually put words and images on a page so that we can solve a reader's problem, so that we can accomplish the work that we're trying to accomplish, whether that's selling something, whether that's offering feedback on something, whether that's analyzing something, etc., or whether that's maybe just informing people. So anyway, that is all to say that I hope you found that interesting. I hope that you were able to look at those and think about how they would play if they were actually handed to a worker in an environment, how readable they would be, how useful they would be, how likely they would be to prevent the types of health and safety issues that are outlined in that sheet. So anyway, if you have any questions about what we're doing, don't hesitate to call or text or email, and we'll definitely take care of any issues as they emerge over the next 4 weeks. But you guys are doing extraordinarily well, and I'm impressed with all the work that I'm seeing, and I'm happy that I'm seeing the level of diligence that I am. And so I'm excited to see what your safety fact sheets look like at the end of this week. And if anybody's having trouble finding resources, or if anybody's having any issues actually putting this on the page, just schedule a time to meet with me or talk with me, and I'm sure that we can handle it. But anyway, again, I appreciate all the hard work, and I look forward to reading your work that you submit this week. Thanks.